One of the most common questions I get is, should I go for a Roth 401k or a traditional 401k or a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA? The answer is never as simple as choosing one or the other. It depends on a lot of factors, and I will discuss those factors here as well as show some examples. In case you're unaware, in a traditional 401k, you put in money before taxes. So you make a paycheck, and before taxes are taken out of your paycheck, you contribute to the 401k first. Does this mean you don't pay taxes? Absolutely not. This only means that you pay taxes when you withdraw your money. On the other hand, a Roth 401k is funded with after-tax money, meaning withdrawals in retirement are tax-free. So the key difference is when you pay taxes. While it is the only main difference between the two, you have to be thoughtful about which one you pick because it could make a huge difference on your financial plan down the road. Let's dig deeper. The key difference between the two is when you pay your taxes. But if you think your income tax rate will stay the same from your working years to when you retire, it probably won't matter which one you pick. However, if you expect your tax rate to change, it's worth looking into a bit more before deciding. Now, this is where you want to pay more attention. The main aim when saving for retirement is to pay less in taxes when your tax rate is high. So let's say you're making a good income and you're in the higher tax bracket. This is where you want to minimize your taxes. Figuring this out isn't always as straightforward because you need to consider how the federal, state, and local taxes might change over time. If you're in a state with higher taxes like California or New York, but you're planning to retire in a state with lower taxes like Florida, it makes sense to choose a traditional 401k. This is because the money you saved on state taxes is likely more than the future increase in federal taxes. And you probably were not expecting me to say this, but traditional 401k can make a lot of sense in many cases. And while you can't predict future tax rates, you can estimate how much income you'll need in retirement and where you plan on living. Having this information can make the choice a whole lot easier because with a regular 401k, you get to decide when and where you want to pay taxes, which can be very helpful if you plan on retiring in a different state. It gives you that flexibility. On the flip side, if you're someone who is a high saver, a Roth 401k might be the smarter choice for you. So here's a quick example. Let's say it's 2024 and you contribute the full amount of $23,000. The $23,000 is divided by 12, which gives you $1916. So this is the amount that you're putting in every month for the next 30 years. So while the $23,000 in a Roth 401k comes from post-tax dollars, a traditional 401k uses pre-tax dollars. In this hypothetical scenario, after 30 years with an average 8% annual return, you would have $2.6 million in your retirement account. However, with a traditional 401k, you would have to pay income taxes on your funds. All taxes combined, assuming a 30% tax rate, a traditional 401k would leave you with $1.8 million for retirement. However, with a Roth, you get the full $2.6 million tax-free. When else can a Roth make more sense? If you anticipate being in a higher tax bracket during retirement. For instance, if your federal effective tax rate is expected to increase from 24% while working to 32% in retirement, a Roth 401k makes more sense. Choosing a Roth allows you to pay taxes at a lower rate right now than you would expect to pay in retirement. And the next question is, why not contribute to both? This is a great question, and this is where it gets fun. For most of us who start with smaller salaries and then the salaries increase as we progress in our careers, it makes sense to start with a Roth 401k early in our career and switch to a traditional 401k as you start earning more later on. This way, you can avoid the highest tax bracket during the peak earning years and have the flexibility when you withdraw money in retirement. This strategy also works very well if you work in a state with high taxes and plan to retire in a state with low taxes. Now, let's go through 3 examples. First, a situation where choosing a Roth or traditional really does not make a difference. Second, a scenario where traditional is a better choice. And third, where a Roth is a better option. So example 1, let's say you have a pre-tax income of $2,000 that you want to invest. You pay 20% in taxes for a Roth 401k option. With the Roth option, you are able to invest $1,600. With a traditional option, you're able to invest the entire $2,000. After 10 years, assuming an 8% annual average return, the Roth 401k option would grow to $3,400. The traditional 401k option would grow to $4,300. But now you pay the same 20% in taxes and you get the exact same results. Bottom line, If you expect to be in the same tax bracket, it probably does not matter which one you pick. Example 2. Let's do the same example, but let's say you expect to be in a lower tax bracket in retirement. The contribution remains the same, but when you withdraw money, let's say you're in the 15% tax bracket. That means that the traditional 401k will come out ahead. The same example, but this time you expect to be in a higher tax bracket in retirement. The contributions, again, will remain the same for both, but when you withdraw the money, let's say you're in the 25% tax bracket. This means that the Roth 401k will come out ahead. If you're still confused, pause the video and go through the numbers and see if it makes sense. Here's another way to look at it. Imagine you're getting ready to retire and you want to put $10,000 into either the traditional or Roth part of your 401k. You're undecided. Your taxable income is $200,000. Which puts you in the 32% tax bracket. However, you think that your income comes down in retirement and you will be in the 24% tax bracket. Choosing to pay 8% more in taxes on the $10,000 now compared to spreading it out in retirement does not make sense. So, it's smarter to delay taxes by contributing to the traditional 401k right now. A common scenario with many retirees is that they often aim to live on a smaller income during retirement compared to their current expenses. This means that they withdraw less money from their retirement accounts, potentially placing them in a lower tax bracket. In such situations, delaying tax payments until retirement can be a money-saving strategy, making a traditional 401k a sensible choice. And now we're basing all this on the assumption that tax brackets are going to look the same or similar to when we retire. And that's an issue. If the federal tax rates increase in the future, opting for the traditional 401k may have a smaller advantage. Conversely, if tax rate decrease, choosing a Roth option could have downsides. Now, looking at the US debt, a logical person would say that taxes are most certainly going up in the future and that there's no way around it. However, even if tax rates do go up, how can you say with certainty what the brackets will look like and what brackets you will fall under? It's impossible to say. So, to hedge your bets, you can contribute to both a traditional and a Roth and allocating funds as you see fit up to the contribution limit. One important thing to note about the Roth 401k employer match is that the employer's contribution does not go into your Roth 401k account. Instead, it goes into a separate pre-tax traditional 401k and it's not subject to immediate taxes. Only your contribution as the employee are placed in a Roth 401k account. This setup is mainly done because the employer match becomes taxable when you withdraw it in retirement. So, what does this mean? If you have a Roth 401k and you have an employer match, you end up with a Roth and a traditional account. And in my opinion, this is the best part about a Roth 401k because you're essentially covering your bases when it comes to taxes. You have both a pre-tax and a post-tax account. Lots and lots of people try and predict future tax brackets, but predicting future tax brackets in retirement can be a bit tricky. Tax rates may change, but we can't predict exactly how they'll change. Also, remember that the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is set to end in 2025, which means that the tax brackets might increase from 2026 onwards. Another thing that can help you in deciding which account to pick is think about what kind of lifestyle you envision in retirement. If you plan to travel extensively, you might need higher withdrawals, potentially putting you in higher tax brackets. Conversely, if you plan on spending time at home and you plan on withdrawing less, you could end up in a lower tax bracket. These are important factors to consider when you're planning which retirement account to pick. Now, one last thing that I left for the end intentionally is because I know it does not apply to a lot of people, but there's another scenario where a traditional 401k makes more sense. If you're thinking about rolling over money from a traditional 401k to a Roth IRA later on, choosing a traditional 401k might be a good idea because when you convert, you have to pay taxes on the converted amount based on your regular tax rate. Remember to think about state income taxes too, as money taken out from a traditional 401k is taxed at both federal and state levels. That said, no one has a crystal ball about their future earnings and their tax rates. Now, very important and also a disclaimer. Please note that each person's financial situation is unique and you need to consider factors like state taxes, your current income, and your retirement plan to figure out which option works best for you. Talk to your advisor about how using these strategies now can really impact total amount in your retirement account when you finish your career.